All right, so we're not just talking about air conditioning today. This is actually about a kind of invisible war that's happening inside our homes every single day. It's this constant fight between the machines we totally depend on and the environment they're stuck in. And, to win that fight, you need a very specific kind of local know how. So let's jump right in and see where this whole conflict gets started.
And this whole battle, it usually kicks off with a single, super frustrating moment that I bet a lot of you know all too well.
Yeah, that moment we all dread, right? The sun is absolutely beating down, it's got to be over 100 degrees out, and then silence. The cool air just stops. And you're sitting there, sweating, thinking, is this just the worst luck ever? Is the universe messing with me? Well, what if I told you that it's almost never bad luck? It's actually predictable. That moment is the breaking point. It's when all the built up stress from your specific, local environment finally pushes that machine over the edge. So, to really get a handle on this, we're going to dive into a pretty fascinating case study. We're looking at Helotes, Texas. It's a place where the environment basically puts your home systems through the ultimate stress test. Okay, so the Texas Hill Country, it does not play games. I mean, it's not just about that brutal 100-plus-degree heat. You've got this intense, unfiltered sun that's just baking and degrading all the plastic and metal parts outside. Then, the weather can just flip on a dime. You can go from needing AC to needing heat in the same day. Think about the stress that puts on parts like the reversing valves. It's just a constant attack from all sides. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. The ground itself is part of the problem. See, the whole area is sitting on limestone, and that kicks up this super fine dust that gets everywhere. It gets sucked into the outdoor AC units and acts like a thick blanket, literally stopping the machine from breathing. And that's not all. You've got hard caliche soil, mineral-heavy water, all these little challenges that a run-of-the-mill installer would just never even think about. And then you've got the houses themselves. You know that popular hill country style, right? High ceilings, wide open floor plans, massive windows. It looks amazing, but wow, it is a nightmare to try and cool down. A ton of these places were built with cheap, builder-grade HVAC systems that were way too small from the get-go. They were never designed to handle that kind of space or that kind of heat. Honestly, they were set up to fail from day one. So what happens when you mash all this together? The climate, the ground, the way the houses are built? Well, the system starts to break down in very specific ways. You start to see the signs that it's just completely overwhelmed. You've probably seen this happen before, even if you didn't know what it was called. The AC kicks on, it runs for maybe a minute, and then it shuts right back off. A few minutes go by, and it does it again. That's called short cycling, and believe me, it is a massive red flag. And this is a perfect example of what we're talking about. Remember that fine limestone dust? Well, it gets into the outdoor unit and clogs up the coils, basically trapping all the heat inside. The system is trying to dump the heat it pulled from your house, but it can't. So its safety sensors trip, and it shuts itself down to prevent damage. The environment is literally choking the machine. Okay, here's another one that just sounds totally wrong. It is blazing hot outside, over 100 degrees, but you go look at your indoor AC unit and it's covered in ice. It's a literal block of ice. How on earth is that possible? It's basically a 1-2 punch. First, all that constant stress on the system can cause tiny leaks in the refrigerant lines. When the refrigerant gets low, the coils inside get way too cold, like abnormally cold. Then, for punch number 2, that same dust from outside clogs up your indoor air filter, which chokes off the airflow. So you combine super cold coils with hardly any air moving over them, and boom, the moisture in the air just freezes solid right onto the unit. All right, so if the problems are this specific, this localized, then it makes sense that the solutions have to be too, right? This is where we get into the local expert's playbook, the stuff that actually works when the going gets tough. You see, a real pro doesn't just show up and start tinkering. They have a process, a clear, logical one. It starts with getting someone out to you fast. Then they do a careful diagnosis and tell you exactly what's wrong and what it'll cost so you can approve it first. And when they're done, they test everything to make sure the fix is going to hold up. This right here is one of the biggest things that separates the pros from the amateurs. A generic installer, they'll just use some outdated rule of thumb, like based on your home's square footage. It's lazy and it's wrong. A local expert, though, they do what's called a manual J load calculation. They're literally measuring your windows, checking your insulation, seeing which way your house faces the sun, all to figure out the exact amount of cooling your unique home actually needs.
And all that expertise isn't just guesswork. It's built on a solid foundation of real engineering standards. There's Manual J for sizing the unit, Manual D for making sure the ducts are right, EPA 608 for handling refrigerant safely, and the National Electrical Code for all the wiring. These aren't just like good ideas, they're the rules that prevent things like fires, major leaks, and your brand new system dying way too soon.
Now, here's a fantastic piece of advice that comes straight from years of experience. It's a simple little formula to help you with one of the toughest calls you have to make as a homeowner. Should I sink more money into repairing this old thing, or is it finally time to replace it?
Okay, so here's how the 5,000 rule actually works. Let's imagine your AC unit is, say, 12 years old, and the tech tells you it needs a $500 repair. You just multiply the age, 12, by the repair cost, 500. That gives you 6,000. Since 6,000 is more than 5,000, the rule says it's probably time to stop throwing good money after bad. It's a really simple, powerful way to make a smart financial decision instead of an emotional one.
All right, so we've taken a deep dive into how this all plays out in the Texas Hill Country. But the big question is, what does any of this mean for you, no matter where you live?
Here's the main takeaway, the thing I really want you to get. The Helotes story, it's really everybody's story. Your house, wherever it is also in a nonstop fight with its own unique local environment. The enemies are just a little different.
For example, maybe you live near the coast and that salty air is just quietly corroding your outdoor unit. Or maybe you're up at high altitude, where the thin air completely changes how your furnace works. It could be heavy snow piling up on your roof unit, or sandy soil making your foundation shift, or even just thick city pollution clogging up your filters twice as fast. See, your home has its own story, its own unique set of challenges defined by where it is.
And really, that's the question I want to leave you with. Figuring out the specific battle your home is fighting every day, that's the first step to finding a real expert who actually knows how to win. So take a minute and think about it. What's your home's story?